So I've been getting massive downloads lately, and one of the biggest ones that I got over the weekend was the nature of the Matrix and how it applies to our 3D reality here on Earth. So, what is the Matrix? To be more accurate, there's actually several matrices. Matrices, to be more accurate. The base component of what a matrix does is it creates a plane or a dimension. It creates dimensions. And here in this dimension, the third dimension, it is what reality is created out of. So let's talk about the word reality and what reality really means. Reality, what is real. This refers to materialism. Materialism. Matter, containing matter, is what is real. Matter, as in mother, coming from Mother Earth, as in representing Earth. Not just Earth the planet, not Gaia, but Earth the element. Now, without going too far into esoterica, in Kabbalah's principle, Earth, the fourth element, is not an element unto itself. It is actually the sum total of fire, water, and air. So when you put together the fire of creation, the seed, the water of life, the womb, and the breath of life, air, you then get the three dimensions that make up the fourth element of Earth. So, here on Earth, the matrix is what creates our reality. And so, under that definition, the matrix is what you perceive. It is routine perception masquerading as reality. Because the truth is, there is no reality. What does that mean? Okay. Materialism versus idealism. This is what they mean by the chicken or the egg. What came first? The chicken, that which lays the egg, or the egg, which actually represents the design, right? And pardon me, we got the kids outside, but this had to come out, okay? Idealism states that things come from thoughts first. Things are first a design, and then they manifest. Materialism says that a thing is first a thing, and that physical existence comes before consciousness. In other words, before there was consciousness, there was matter, right? From matter came consciousness, right? Well, our science has finally caught up to what is real, and quantum physics understands that there is actually design before there is matter. Now, these designs, right, we're not just talking about sacred geometry and shapes, we're talking about algorithms, patterns, reoccurring trends, archetypes. These are the things that the matrix is comprised of. It is the language that the matrix is coded in. All right, symbols and signs. And when I talk about signs, I don't just mean following the signs. I mean sign as in S-I-N, as in a wave. Waveforms, right? Sound particles. Sound has waves. Light has waves. Everything is comprised of waves. Everything is comprised of energy that is then slowed down into matter. Now, your brain does not directly perceive what is in front of it. It doesn't have the time. It doesn't have the time. Your brain hallucinates what you see. It takes a snapshot of your environment, stores it into your mind, and runs your perception as if. In other words, it's looking for object permanence and sustaining it. Feeding it back to your brain and telling you that that object is still there. Your mind runs on an assumption. Ergo, your reality is your assumptions. So when I tell you that the matrix is perception, it is programmed and reoccurring perception masquerading as reality, I'm saying that what we perceive as real is what we expect to be real based upon what we experienced once, and our brain continues to make real until that becomes the default. That was a little big. What's a simpler way to explain that? A simpler way to explain that is, here's a little story. So, before the Spanish had docked on the shores, the Aztecs and the Mayans, they'd never seen a real sea-bearing ship before. They'd never seen something move across the ocean. It was out of existence. Nothing had ever done that. Right? And so, they literally never saw the Spanish coming. Until one day, one of the Aztec shamans was sitting on his favorite cliff overlooking the water. And he knew these waters like the back of his hand because that was his meditation spot. He knew the grass, he knew the trees, he knew the waves. He knew that area, that island, that spot, as well as he knew anything in his life. Sitting in his spot, over about a 2-week period, he noticed that the waves were breaking differently. He looked more carefully, and he could tell by the lack of ebb and flow, just the disruption from the usual patterns, that there was something on the water. He just couldn't see it. And so he stared at that spot, and he stared at that spot, and he stared at that spot. And then after 2 weeks of observation, he finally saw it. Boom! 4 giant ships on the water. Then he went back and told the people. Now, those ships had been there the entire time. The thing is, he'd never seen a ship before. And since he'd never seen a ship, his brain didn't have a concept of what a ship was. Therefore, he couldn't see it because he could not put together the idea that there was something so massive floating on top of the water. It wasn't until he stared at the waters he knew so well and noticed the changing of the breaking waves and tides that something was different. It was the observation that something was different that allowed him to see the ships. This is the Matrix. The Matrix is comprised of what we call common sense. It is everything you know, everything you are told, everything that you have seen. Over time, this common sense, this routine perception, becomes your physical reality, our shared physical reality. Because in truth, in this third dimension, the way that atoms function is that everything is comprised of the same atoms. Everything is made from the same thing. The only difference between this lighter, this ankh, and this rock is perception. Hold that for a moment. Because without a perceiver, without somebody paying attention to these atoms, continually saying, this is a lighter, this is an ankh, and this is a stone, they would just be atoms, floating in an endless sea of other atoms, waiting to take form. The matrix is what those forms comes through. It is the defining parameters, symbols, and reoccurring patterns that make up our material reality. All right? What you see is what you get. That's the matrix. I'm going to keep this video short because I want you to reflect on that story. I want you to reflect on the fact that everything is made out of atoms and the only thing that separates them is the observer. We say, well, the earth has been here for trillions of years and man has been here for a short time. How do we know that? We know that from our perception as man, measuring time based off of our experience. We know of Earth and we experience Earth because we routinely perceive Earth as we believe it to be. We are Allah. Arm, leg, arm, head. Walking on Earth, experiencing reality. That's materiality. Matter, that's matter. Mother, real. What's real is what's matter on mother. Ality, ism. Without us, without the perceiver, we really don't know what this plane looks like. That is the fundamental basis of what a matrix and the matrix is. It's a raw form. It brings ideas into matter by slowing down vibration into a reoccurring pattern and concept that is perceived by the observer. Reality is created from observation. The matrix is fixed observation masquerading as reality. This is why whenever people take psychedelics, they have hallucinations, because again, your brain takes snapshots of what it sees and assumes the rest. So when all of a sudden your perception is changed, right? Whether it's chemically induced or you're having a third eye awakening because of a kundalini rising, all of a sudden you see things differently. When people hallucinate, they are experiencing the fluidity of reality, because you can hallucinate to the degree where you feel, smell, see your hallucinations, your phantoms. This is how you see on the outside with your outer eye. This is how you see on the inside with your inner eye. The matrix that we live in today has given us societal constructs on how to perceive the world. You are taught from a child words and how to label things. You are taught what these things do. You are taught how to stand, how to walk, when to sleep, when to eat, what to eat, when to pray, who to pray to, what you do, what you are, what you're called. These are symbols, words, and concepts repeated to you to socialize you into a greater group consciousness to create a shared reality. And over time, those fixed observations become real. They take on matter because they are energy that has been slowed down to fit an algorithm until it becomes matter. Right? Matter can be physical matter, or matter can be social matters, as in this matters, that doesn't matter. This is important, this is not important. This has a point, this does not have a point. This is real, this is make-believe. This is important because our density as a planet is shifting, because our mass consciousness as the observer is shifting. Now, this is part natural due to solar upgrades, because the sun does upgrade not only our DNA but our perception. It gives us updates the same way that your PlayStation gets updates. But also, as we have technologically progressed, we are having a different human experience. The more we interact with these screens, the more we look at the world in a formulaic digital way. That is, the more we turn things into video games, concepts, and systems, the more we are able to see and conceptualize beyond simply what we can feel. This is why we are moving closer to the fifth dimension, even though we are not necessarily spiritually attuned. It is because little by little we are leaving our bodies and we are perceiving more things that are intangible and fluid, like the internet. You put in what you want to see on the internet by entering your information into a browser, or typing it into the search bar, and then an image is returned. Because we have the physical machinery of computers, and then we are able to explain this through mass communications, the internet, how we explain how computers work as a physical instrument, right? We are allowing our consciousness to expand beyond our classical material reality by entering into the dream state of virtual reality. So if you're asking if we're living in a simulation, we've always lived in a simulation, right? Reoccurring patterns just happening over and over and over again in order to make something firm and solid. This algorithm of reality also applies to a society. This is why you have religion. This is why you have culture. You set your people's routines until their routines become something physical and set. We live in a 9-to-5 world. You get a job, you are an adult by 18, you're mature by 30, you should, have kids by 35, by 65 you retire. 72 plus it's about that time to move on to your next stage of life. This is how we perceive reality, so much so that assumption becomes how our reality plays out. Knowing this knowledge, that perception is reality, the world that we have around us is what has been shown to us repetitively on screens, on whiteboards. It has been repeated back to us until we perceive it in a shared way, until it becomes an assumption that happens subconsciously. The matrix is the wool that is pulled over your eyes, simply because without it, you would not be able to communicate with your neighbor. You would not be able to agree upon what you are experiencing. The problem is, it relies heavily on groupthink. This is why different countries used to be called different worlds. You go to a different country before the time of globalization, you really were stepping into a different world because you were stepping into a different shared reality. That is the matrix. It's the shared reality of shared symbols that bring ideas into matter. When you tell people what matters and you set their priorities to the degree where it is automatic and it is constantly fed back to them either through observation, especially these days on a screen, or feedback, interacting with other humans, other people, and getting the consensus experience. In other words, everybody knows you put your hand on the stove, it's hot, because it's happened enough times, it's been told to you enough times. That part, that's what it is. You want to see how people bend reality? We're talking about drugs here because spiritualism is such a subjective experience, but people having psychotic breaks on drugs, that is a material experience. All right? Look at people on PCP and the crazy things that they can do, their freakish-like strength, the fact that they can put their hand on a stove, all right, and not feel heat. Now, does it mean they're going to come up not burned? No. What about the people walking on hot coals, or the swamis who can put their hand in the fire and come back and not be burned? Have they developed their bodies to a degree where energy and physical interaction cannot touch them, or have they become so strong that the elements of nature cannot affect them? No. What they have done is they have shifted their reality to say, fire is not hot. This is just light. While they are hallucinating, they are augmenting their reality. The consequences they suffer is whenever they come back into this shared reality. And then the guideline rules of the shared reality that has been running over time, over and over and over again, right, like Groundhog Day, will then take effect. So you're God mode until you come back, but the second you come back, snap. You are immediately held accountable to the rules of that reality, and it is a very quick justice system. We like to call it gravity. So time and gravity and repetition define the weight and the mainstay of reality, how it's held together. Okay? When you can shift your mind, when you can shift your attention and your awareness to say, this is a ball, this is not a ball, it doesn't matter if it's a ball or not, then you have the ability to leave the matrix. I hear you, right? A ball's a ball. You can't just say a ball isn't a ball. Can you not? Can you not meditate and visualize a ball in your head and change its shape? When you dream, you can turn a ball into anything if you know how to lucid dream and maintain your consciousness. Right? This is how you shift your reality. You redefine the terms. Now, you're still subject to the physical reality and the shared rules, right? Gravity and physical solidness has been thought on and experienced for so long. You're not just going to break that. It's the collective consciousness that breaks that. Just like the movie, what was that? Is it Bruce Willis? What's it called? It's one with Mr. Glass. Not Unbreakable, the last one that came out. It was Split, Unbreakable, the third movie. Listen, spoiler alert. Here was his idea on how he was going to change the world and break reality. His idea is that mankind is actually superpowered. And the reason that we don't exercise our superpowers is we don't acknowledge them. Ergo, we don't believe they exist. But the second we see a superpowered individual, right? You see somebody take off and fly or shoot lasers from their eyes. The second somebody gets caught doing that on YouTube, the second that you are given permission to accept that's reality, for example, UFOs. Oh no, I didn't see a UFO. Now Fox News, now NBC, now mainstream media, now the president is telling you there's UFOs. And guess what? You're probably seeing them. Why? Because you have permission to. Right? Because the collective consciousness is officially giving you permission to perceive beyond what has been said. Superpowers, teleportation, bilocation, telekinesis, prestidigitation. These things are possible, right? Even if only in a digital or in a dream reality. You can do it in your dreams, and in a virtual reality set, you can do it in a game. And when your reality starts to become more of a game, the parameters change. People will be levitating soon. People will be displaying telekinesis and telepathy. Why? Because our reality now allows for it. First through our simulations, then through our broad philosophy, our broad spread philosophy of, are we in a simulation? The more people that believe we're in a simulation and the more examples of feedback that we are given that we might be, the more the matrix breaks. Because the matrix, again, is repetitive perception masquerading as reality. That's the matrix, folks. The truth is, there is no one. We've done that before. They send the one back, he dies. Usually because people kill him. The truth is, we are all the one, and that is his message. The only thing that Neo does, and you can insert the one here, whether it's Neo, right? Whether it's Krishna, whether it's Christ, what they do is they show you that reality is malleable because they have mastered their perception to the degree where their perception is stronger than the consciousness around them. You could almost say they have a cult of personality. A cult of personality. Right? Materiality, the great mother, the one, Jesus, if you will, is the great son, the son of the mother, the one who can choose materiality because his personness, his personality, his understanding that he is the dreamer is stronger than the dream and can awaken the other dreamers to the dream reality, to the reality that they themselves are the dreamers as well. And even though we are all connected, having a shared dream, our reality can be changed by A, a strong person's perception, and B, a little bit of proof. All you need is a strong figure and a really good magic trick and a well-crafted explanation to bring about a change in how this all works. So what is the Matrix? The Matrix is what you think it is. The Matrix is what you think it is, what your neighbor thinks it is, what your grandmother thought it was, what your ancestors thought it was. It is the consistent dream that is being kept alive. And even if there's just one dreamer to hold it, if his dream makes more sense than everybody else's around him, if it holds more weight, that one dreamer can keep the entire world in the exact same dream. Which is why an expansion of your consciousness and our expansion of our collective consciousness is needed to change our world. Because right now, we are running on routines. We are running on routines that are acting as if they are random events. And that's the real secrets of the Matrix. It is to make an algorithm look like it has randomization. It doesn't have randomization. It only has a long string that will eventually return back to pattern. Like the phi ratio. After that 17th digit, you're going to get some repeat work. But it requires attention and foreknowledge to watch that pattern long enough to see, there's something there. Be the shaman on the rocks and stare at the water you know. And if you stare at it long enough and notice those waves breaking a little different, you just might see the ships in the sky. It's been Midnight Miles, blowing your mind and expanding your consciousness. Live long and prosper. And until then, may the odds be ever in your favor. Logging out.